Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Alay. My pronouns are he, him. I'm also known as trans yoga teacher, and I'm calling in from unceded Cherokee land in Asheville, North Carolina. And I'm really honored to have this group of people with us here today. Like I can't even say it. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Um, yeah, as you know, it's Trans Day of Visibility, and I wanted to do something to uplift trans voices and not just trans pain. And so I wanted to invite folks who are like me and different from me to share space this evening and talk about their hopes and dreams and maybe their pain if they want as trans folks in the world today. So thank you for everyone in the audience and especially to the panelists for being here. We didn't do a predetermined order, but everyone's going to introduce themselves. So does anyone want to go first?
Sure, I will go. My name is Alexander. I go by Alexander Tries. My pronouns are he, she, they. I'm gender fluid, so I collect all the pronouns. I have self-labeled myself an LGBTQIA plus activist, a mental health advocate, and really just hopefully eventually maybe more of a beauty expert, but yeah, that is what I do and who I am. And I also during the daytime, what I do to get paid is I am a senior technical recruiter for a company in San Francisco, but I am joining you all from Southern California in Orange County. So nice to see you all. Love seeing so many beautiful faces. Thank you for having me, Ale.
I guess I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Al Rare. I am a yogi. I am a meditation person. Gosh, I do so many different things. But most importantly for today, I identify as non-binary. My pronouns are they, them. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I'm currently on Kumeyaay territory in San Diego. And yeah, it's a beautiful day and I'm excited to meet all of you and be in community.
I can share next. Namaskaram, everybody. It's Sunaina here. I prefer they, them pronouns. I identify as non-binary. I wear many hats. I identify as a multidimensional, infinite being. In my profession, I am a professional model, dancer, artivist, all of the hat wearing things. I'm also a yoga and meditation guide. Currently, in this moment, I am residing on the unceded ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Ute, and Arapaho nations, colonized as Denver, Colorado. I'm so excited to be here. I'm coming at you live from my God room, from my yoga room, hoping to send some blessings out to you. So thank you all for being here and for witnessing and letting us be witnessed. Really happy and excited to be here. And I am complete. Blessings.
I guess I will go next. Hi, everybody. My name is Minky. My pronouns are they, them. I'm otherwise known as Lifty Boy. I am the founder and owner of Hun Training here in Chicago, which is, of course, the colonized land of the Kickapoo. And yeah, I'm just so excited to be here with such beautiful people and share in like our trans joy and bodies and strength together and talk about like how we as a community can continue to build and bridge gaps and unite, you know, intersectionally and dismantle white supremacy as needed which is very needed. So thank you all for joining.
All right, I can do the next. Super big hello to you all. My name is Avery Kalapa, they, them pronouns. I'm joining you from unceded Tiwa land, so-called Albuquerque, New Mexico. And my Instagram handle and website, Yoga with Avery, yogawithavery.com. I am really invested in this embodied liberatory space. I'm interested in how the ways that we've internalized various oppression, dominant culture. I'm curious about how to disrupt that on kind of a root, spirit, nervous system, somatic level. And I'm excited about this collection of folks because we're all like a lot of different lenses, and there's this commonality around like trans, non-binary genderness, and it feels like body, like in the location of body. So yeah, I'm super delighted to be here. I'm a certified Iyengar yoga teacher, a queer and trans wellness advocate. I'm big on lineage in all the ways, and all the critiques of all the things. And what else do I want to share? Yeah, I'm a white settler, I'm trans masculine, I'm non-binary, I'm neurodivergent. I have a massive crush on life. I'm really here for it. I'm feeling juiced up. I feel actually like at this point, I feel like it's been hard for so long, but something has shifted, which isn't actually random. Like it was strategic, but also surprising. And maybe I'll share more about that in a bit, but like, I'm really feeling here for it. I'm like here for this. I'm here for community. I'm here for like the emergent next thing that is this moment that we get to co-create and be part of in terms of intersectional trans liberation and all the collective liberation. And it feels very curious and rich right now, this moment we're in. So yeah, happy to be here with you all. Thank you.
Kenya, do you want to go?
Greetings all. It is good to be in community with you all. My name is Kenya. My pronouns are they, them, king. On the Instagrams, I guess I'm the queer birth worker, just queer birth worker. And yeah, it's trying hard to kind of succinctly, as everybody else did, kind of share where I'm coming from. Queer birth worker, I do work around helping queer and trans and non-binary folks to have safer spaces and reproductive, the whole spectrum of our full entire lives, actually, from birth to death. So I kind of do that's where my work is centered right now. And also, I guess right now I'm bringing into energy that one of my littles is in the ICU, so I'm a little bit, my energy is a little bit low. But I wanted to make sure that I was here because, as it's been pointed out, more times than not, we are talking about our suffering and all the other negative parts of our existence. And a full part of my existence is pleasure and ease. It was not really hard for me to be here to give this a yes. And it is also not very hard for me to also be here, even with the other stuff I'm experiencing in other parts of my life. That this is pleasurable for me to be in a space with other queer and trans people as we are celebrating our day of visibility. So I just wanted to, yeah, bring that in, and I'm here for the conversation. I look forward to all the good stuff that's going to come up today.
Thank you, everyone, so much for calling yourselves into the space. You're all so amazing. Just like deep bows. I'll call myself in. I have to read my bio because I'm nervous. So I'm a queer, trans, masc, and fat certified yoga instructor and advocate. And I said that I'm in love with gender, fuckery, and queering life. I was explaining to my friend yesterday that I don't actually identify as a trans man. I'm just like trans masc with a lot of bit of ish. Like I used to identify as non-binary, and I'm still not very binary. I think a lot of folks here in the space can relate. And I want to name our sponsors and thank our sponsors for helping us pay trans folks, because it's not right to ever ask trans folks to work for free. And I really didn't want to do that. So thank you to GoFundMe and Daylight Money, their new queer bank. Everyone knows GoFundMe because they are a source of a lot of funding opportunities for our trans community when we undergo surgeries and other things. And possibly soon Trans Joy, TBD. And thank you to the Justice Film Collective. They're a film collective that is doing, right now they're working on a movie, the first queer movie out of Western North Carolina with a queer love story. So it's really exciting. And they're shaking up all the systems just like we are here. And Genuine Valentine, who gave us a lot of these t-shirts that we're wearing. They make really cute stuff. You can buy it and support a good cause. And Queer Movement, I'm not sure if they're here right now, but they made some really cool personal training videos for folks recovering from top surgery and other like just desire to get into your body when you're transitioning or not, just humans. So trying to think if I forgot anything. I don't think so.
One more. If you
Ganesh
don't.
Space.
Yes, so I also wanted to shout out Ganesh Space. I am a founding teacher there. They are a 501c3 nonprofit, BIPOC-led social justice organization based in Brooklyn, in New York. So thank you so much to them as well for providing financial support and spiritual support as well.
Thanks, Sunina. So now to open up the topic, the first question I want to ask everyone is, if you were to get quiet, maybe you already did it today, maybe you do it every day, maybe some days are easier than others. Definitely sending your little one, Kenya, love. What are your, oh, and I want to also thank our ASL interpreters, Flor and Melchior. Melchior, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It's really exciting to have trans and ASL interpreters in this space. So if you were to get quiet, what would your dreams and hopes look like for queer or for trans folks specifically? Like what do you dream of? What do you wish for us, for our community, for yourselves, for your own community? Like when you allow your heart to expand and float and fly away, where does it go? Take time to think about it if you need, and if you've been dreaming about this for years and you're ready to talk, go.
I want to answer the question in a moment, but first I just want to briefly, if it's okay, like if folks want to put on the gallery view, I just know there's like a lot of trans and non-binary beloveds in the space. And I want you all to feel like you can also arrive here, and you don't have to be visible, but if you want to be visible, like if you are a non-binary person or a gender non-conforming person and or a trans person, if you want to like throw a heart or an emoji up, I would just love to like feel that and feel your all's presence in that way. Yeah, I'm just feeling this within everyone that's in the Zoom, like, fuck, it's like such a sweet group. Thank you. Oh, yeah, some real sweet folks from all over. Thank you. Yeah, thank you all for being here, and thank you, allies. Yeah, so happy you all are here. And take good care, like drink water, cuddle with the flowers, cats, whatever you need to stay present. Yeah, okay. Sorry to subvert the plan. Back to the radical imagining trans joy.
Alexander tries. Are you trying to talk because you're muted?
Yeah, I just didn't decide to unmute the way I expected it with the space bar. So, but I figured I can answer that because I think it's not that I've been thinking about it forever, but I think we are all consistently evolving, and my thoughts of what I think of where I want us to be consistently also evolve. But I think right now where I am and where I want us to be is world domination. Um, and I actually mean that. I mean that in the way of we need to be as, and this is important and relevant, visible as possible. Because with that comes understanding. And that's what we don't have right now. And the reason we don't have that is because we've been living in fear and hidden for so long that we just feel uncomfortable being ourselves. But there are so many people out in the world who are of the trans experience and are still living in fear. That's for sure. I for those of you who don't know, probably won't know because I didn't mention this, but I'm a content creator as well. And I have an Instagram, alexander.tries, which I use to really help educate people on the trans experience and also mental health and all of that as well. But I, because of that channel, because of that platform, I've gotten to see how much hurt and how many people are out there that really actually need help. And I mean that because I get messages, so many private messages every day, all day, letting me know that they're so grateful for what I do and that they wish they could. And it's really difficult to kind of read every single day, just because I can feel that hurt throughout the entire world. And I was there too. I was in a place where I couldn't, I didn't feel happy or comfortable or just like I belonged really. And so it's just, anyway, it's very disheartening to see that. But we're not there. So with that said, world domination is where I really want to go. I really want us to be CEOs and presidents, and I think we can do that. I mean, there's so many amazing people doing so many incredible things that are just making the noise we need them to, and not everybody needs to do that, because everybody has their preferences and how they want to live in life. But if you do have that option or that privilege really in life to do so, fucking do it. Just like, what is going to stop you from helping other people in this world? It's the best thing you can do. Like, it really is. Like, what else would you really want to spend your time doing? I mean, other than, being self-serving, which is also important in a way, because you need to be there for yourself in order for you to be there for other people. But yeah, I mean, I really, I think that I'm going to reiterate it. World domination is the way to go. Let's like be seen. Let's like continue to become, actors and actresses who win awards and make the noise, and politicians who change the laws. And it's really cool. I was actually raised in South America, in Venezuela, and I just was doing some research for a post I was doing for my company, for today, for Trans Day of Visibility. And it's International Trans Day Visibility. So I thought it was really important for me to include international trans leaders. And I discovered that even Venezuela actually just recently, like maybe a few years ago, um, brought in their first like trans politician into office. And this is like South America, what? You know, I mean, this is great. So more of that, more of that. That's my thoughts.
I'll pop in here. I definitely agree with world domination for trans folks. I mean, who's going to complain about that? Not me. But on top of that, I think what I would really, my ideal dreamy situation for trans and non-binary and gender expansive folks would just be to like build intersectional bridges, yeah, to like find that unity amongst marginalized communities, because there are trans folks of so many, you know, different like areas of life, you know, like myself, I'm Korean, I'm an immigrant, I'm queer, I am of like neurodivergent experience as well. So like all of those things come together in one, but so many places are, or so many like communities are separate from each other or have like contention between each other. So finding that like intersectional like mending and community building amongst each other and accepting each other, I think that would be ideal, because then we can continue to build world domination and continue to build the queer army that I dream of every day in order to fight for the folks who can't be out, and also just let them all know like, hey, we're here. And so if need be, we can fight back and beat some white supremacists up. Not that I'm condoning violence necessarily, but if we need to, we can do it. So that's my dream.
Hey there. I feel like we already have world domination in a lot of ways. It's just that we don't have power. And I think that to dominate, yes, you do need power, but I think that we have the majority. I think that, you know, there's so many people that I'll meet that are straight, whatever they identify as, but they're always questioning more to learn about themselves, or at least when they open their minds, they're always open to, oh, like maybe I can wear that, or maybe I can express myself in that way. So I think that once we start to understand that the way that we are expressing ourselves in the world is okay, then other people will feel that way too. But it takes, again, like a lot of conditioning. It takes really like getting out of your comfort zone, moving out of where you grew up, and surrounding yourself with different people, different beliefs, different things. Because if you're in the same space for a while, the beliefs start to echo, and then there's no space for new information. And I think that's what causes a lot of like transphobia and a lot of issues with just our acceptance and us having power. It's because a lot of people are stuck in these kind of belief cycles that like, oh, trans people are this, trans people are that, when really trans people are people. You know, we're all different types of things. We are content creators, we are yoga teachers, we are politicians. You know, we're not only just, you know, what society deems us to be, but we are what we express ourselves to be in all different types of ways and all different types of just ways of being. Yeah. So I guess for me, I feel like, you know, trans joy is really just seeing like less of my trans sisters being killed just for existing. And trans joy is just being able to walk down the street and not have someone comment on what I'm wearing because it makes them uncomfortable, but for them to just let me exist and be, you know, like I don't need someone telling me, oh, nice dress, or oh, nice earring, or oh, nice mustache, or like whatever, because I'm whatever, like just let me be, like stop judging me for the way that I look, and stop trying to like, you know, say something that makes you feel comfortable about how I express myself, when really just like say, hey, how are you? Maybe like, or how's your day going? Or like, do you want to have a conversation? You know, like I think having more conversations and getting to know the person instead of just, you know, trying to connect with someone based off of how they look is also another way of us getting to that trans joy, because what we see on the outside is nothing compared to what we have in here, you know.
Thank you, Alexander Tries, Owl Minky, for all of your shares. I'm feeling like all of your shares is really giving me the power to share in this moment, you know? And for me, trans and non-binary joy looks like radical acceptance, and not just acceptance from the trans community, but acceptance from every single person, you know, like acceptance to just allow people to be themselves without that identity or that series of identities imposing on somebody else or imposing on you. And it comes down to sitting with discomfort, you know. And for me, I'm an immigrant. A little bit about my positionality, like I'm an immigrant. I immigrated here from India in 1996. And my parents are mixed caste, and you know, my mom moved back to India when I was 17, and so I kind of had to find my way at a very young age. And I was a caregiver. I was a nanny for a very long time for a lot of different families to pay my way through. And I as I was raising all of these children who weren't my children, I started understanding all of these binaries that are imposed on us from a very, very young age. And it allowed me to go really deep into myself in like as swadhyaya, for those of you who practice yoga, like really deep self-inquiry of asking myself, like, who am I? Who am I? And so I started adopting all of these identities, and I was very fluid for a long time. And you know, I came to this understanding that no matter what identities you hold, that self, which is inside of each one of us, regardless of how you identify, is the same self. So when we go into this radical self-acceptance of ourselves, we're able to reflect it to other people and say, I accept you exactly the way you are, with all of the identities that you show up with, whether you're trans or non-binary or anything in between. And it allows people to show up wholly. It allowed me to show up wholly. And when I found community, because I really feel like the liberation is in community, when we can take care of each other and when we can be in community with each other, just like this in this very moment. And when we can see each other and accept each other for who we are in this moment, that is where that radical acceptance comes in. And it's not easy to sit in discomfort. I also want to state that, you know, like even now as I'm sharing, like I feel my nervous system being activated, and I feel all of my yoga practices coming into play to ground me into this moment, to ground my limbic system so it doesn't go into overdrive, right? And that fear, that fight or flight response is something that many trans non-binary folk live in on a daily basis. And so to have this platform to share those truths is absolutely a privilege. And also, like, I really liked what Minky said about intersectionality. Thank you, Kimberly Crenshaw. You know, like, I feel that this is a global fight, right? We can't just take into the context only America. And I think America wants to do that sometimes, where like it just channels you in and says only America, only focus at what's happening here. But in reality, all of us are connected. We are not separate from this earth. We are not separate from each other. We are all reflections of each other. And when we show up in that truth, and when we show up with that acceptance for ourselves and others, we're able to move forward in love. And that's what I want for our community. That's what I want for this world. You know, I want us to stop being at war with each other, and I want us to bloom and radiate in radical acceptance and love. I'm complete.
Woo! Can I follow? I love, yeah, the trajectory is so good. Like what everyone, it does make me also, side note, wonder like, what is the inverse of domination? All right, that's over here. But yeah, I'm feeling so resonant, and yeah, I've got to bring in the yoga a little because that's just what I love so much. But yeah, that piece of like the inner radiance, like when I think of trans joy, I think of like what are the conditions that allow for such a disarming, like a taking off all the layers of armor that we have required, that basically we put on to survive and navigate the world, to like take that off and have our system be so relaxed and so to be so embodied and so like have a deep, secure, attached relationship with our own radiance, which is what yoga is about, right? Like Patanjali says, when all the vrittis, the cessation of all the stuff, calms down, is silent, quiet, then the seer dwells in their own true splendor. But at other times, the seer or the soul, or you could think of like the self with a capital S, at other times, the seer identifies with the fluctuating consciousness. Like we think that we are all that out there, like all that systemic oppression, all that cultural conditioning, binary, like all that stuff. And that's really the root of our suffering, is like this identification with what is not real. And so when I think of trans joy, this is one reason to me trans is so sacred. It's like a tear in the fabric of the illusion of all that stuff that we were told is the reality. And we're like, no, it's not the reality. Like there's something so much more beautiful, but it can be such a lonely, dark journey to get there, because those layers are heavy and it's hard. Like the world is so attached to that stuff because the world, like it's sort of like the story is, oh, like you deserve to be here because these privileged identities, right? Like because you're white, or because you have proximity to wealth, maleness, cisgender, like all that stuff. And so people are really attached because they're like, oh, this is my identity, this is my source of power, it's who I am, I'm not going to let go of that, then I will cease to exist. And so really like the intersections of all the marginalized identities and centering transness in a particular way today, like it is precious. Those are like beams of light shining through this like dark fabric of illusion. And so yeah, I just want folks to, like trans folks and gender non-conforming and non-binary people, to have the spaciousness, like the deep, deep, deep appreciation of the goodness that we are, like that you are already, like the wholeness that is, because there's a lot of internalized conditioning that says the opposite. And when we take that on, it's almost like the systems of oppression don't even have to do the work, because we end up doing it on ourselves. Like we do that to each other. We just replicate the shame and harm and loneliness. Like there's so many dear beloveds. And even if I look at like the path of my own life, like how much like overgiving, running on fumes, constantly being exhausted, and like giving because you feel like there's some kind of low self-worth piece, or maybe it shows up as like addiction and doing all the drugs and like all the alcohol, like all, you know, this sort of like self, like a slow death path. And I see clearly like when there's access to the transition that's needed, like it disrupts that inner harm trajectory. And like the statistic, like we know that, right? But to have that visceral experience of like, oh, we like the way that we self-replicate in our nervous systems, minds, hearts, bodies, within ourselves, and then in our relationships and our community, the way we replicate that harm. When I think of trans joy, it's like a really clear end, like a disruption, like Om Namah Shivaya, done, like no more not replicating, but actually like completely something else, an end to that replication of harm that's playing out in us and around us. And then that radiance can shine through because it's already there. Like the radiance is there. So that's what I'm curious about. Like, how do we disrupt that harm that we do to ourselves and then to each other? And it's like deep inner intimate work, but it also happens in community. I love this. Look, they said there's magic in being seen by people who understand. It gives you permission to keep going. Self-expression sometimes requires other people. Becoming ourselves is a collective journey. So I've been thinking about this so much, like it's such a deep personal inner thing to have that discovery of transness, and like also it's not individual, like it has to happen in community, and we don't have to do it alone. So that's the vision, is like to have the like technologies, which we already have, to have the insight and the practices, and like to disrupt that harm. And then we can bask in our own radiance and in each other's radiance, and just like appreciate the fuck out of each other, and like rest and like eat fruit and really taste it, like have the juice run down, and just like have tons of awesome sex if that's what you're into, and have tons of like money if that's what you're into, like whatever it is that affirms for you in the world around you the experience of your own radiance and self-worth. Like that's going to look different for everyone, but to know that like, oh yeah, like that, you deserve that. That's how I'd answer that. I don't know. Leave it there. Thank you.
I just wanted to touch too that the idea of doing things by ourselves is like directly from like settler and colonizer mentality. And when we decolonize, we understand that community is where we come from and where we come back to.
I also just wanted to add that I think another really important part of what all of our dreams like need is accessibility, right? Like I think access would be one of the biggest and important things that I would want for our community. All, you know, everybody that we like fight for, particularly those in the trans experience, access is going to be the main thing. Just access to seeing like those of us who are visible, right? And like access to medical care, healthcare, access to community, access to all of the steps that you need in order to feel like more yourself. So especially for like trans youth, because right now in the States in particular, you know, they're getting attacked. And sorry about the noise in the background. Here we are in Chicago. But it's having access for youth to be within their own community, and to elders who are able to help them through that process of being, you know, judged and not being able to have their like whole self be acknowledged, I think is going to be another thing that we are constantly kind of aiming for and fighting for and hoping for.
I'd like to add, actually, you know, to access to education is really important. Speaking of access, like we just had this ridiculous bill in Florida, which is titled "Don't Say Gay," which is just a blatant attack to the trans community, period. And it's just, it's interesting to see that we're regressing in that when we have so much more opportunity in education. So I think those of us who are visible, I think it is important for us to, if we can and we have the bandwidth, to try to educate with as much understanding and patience as possible, because it's not always easy to have to educate or to educate anybody. Not that we need to, But if we can and we're willing to, like, we should be able to do it with love and with understanding. And I say that with understanding to a certain degree, because I do believe that there are certain people who are willing to learn and are open, their mind and heart are open, and they're willing to accept newness and information and grow. And then there are other folks who really aren't. And so I think we need to be smart about who we're also spending our time on and giving our time to, because we also have very limited amount of time. Like, if you think about it, the only real thing you own in life, period, ever, is time. Your time you will never get back. Like, I'm so happy to give all of you my time right now, and to me this is my most valuable possession, but I'm so happy to give it to all of you. But that's why I say it's really important to know who we're giving our time to and who we're spending our time with when we're educating. The reason I say that is because I've been on the other side. I've been on the, I spent too long in Florida. And you know, I grew up in a Republican household, and I had a very, my parents are both immigrants, and it's just like a very, very weird situation. Um, um, but you know, I forgot where I was going because I got just so totally sidetracked by talking about my parents, because it's just such a moment to talk about them. Um, I actually wish they would be here today, like listening to this, but this is relevant to all this education. They're not open to this education, and that's why I wasn't open to the education. And it was only maybe 2 years ago that I really opened my heart to understanding and believing that there are people who live outside of the binary, and that the binary isn't real. Like you said, it's a tear. Like, this is not real. The binary is not real. Y'all, it is not real. Things don't move linearly like that. There is no straight line. It just does not exist. So, but it takes a long time to see that and to awaken yourself to that, because when you're surrounded by your environments, like Owl said, you know, I think you're limited. You're in this echo chamber where you're just yelling the same things back and forth at each other, and you're not growing, you're not learning. So sometimes also getting out, like not just education, but getting out of where you are, because you can learn as much as you can, but if you're still in your same environment, you can't live what you've learned. You cannot. That's why I left Florida and I moved to California, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to be myself there as a queer person. Back then, I just, you know, not just by, again, I identified as a cisgender gay man. And even then, and especially now, I'm so much more grateful to be where I am, surrounded by the people I am and the support that I have. And, you know, I'm in Orange County, California, which is, you know, not necessarily what people think of when they think of like the most like queer freedom, but California in general, queer freedom, let's talk about it. But even here, there's like a bar that opened not too long ago called Strut that I go to all the time. It's in Orange County in the city called Costa Mesa. And it is like a safe space for us here that we like can actually like visit and have, and it's just something that I necessarily didn't even feel in Florida. So anyway, I mean, I feel like I'm sidetracking a lot here, but I really appreciate everybody sharing what they've shared so far, and I think it's really opening my mind up to even new thoughts and new ways of thinking, because again, nothing's binary, not even my way of thinking. So thank you everybody for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for everybody for sharing what you're visioning for trans joy. I echo much of everything that's been shared. The only thing that I think I would add, in addition to what y'all shared, is the absence of fighting. I have no desire to fight for anything. So, so yes, accessibility. Accessibility means everything, like everyone mentioned. It means access to a community. It means access to care. It means access to care from, again, from beginning of life until end of life, that everybody has everything that they need in order to feel supported. It means pleasure, as Avery shared, pleasure at all points, every single point of your life. You have access to every single thing of pleasure that you can come up with, that we're only limited by our imagination. The absence of many things, but most importantly, I don't want to go on about the absence of, but more around, yes, intersectionality, so the full parts of our being, for us to show up with our mental health care is always available for us. Our physical well-being always taken care of, that we have people who will always be able to support us, that we're all doing the things to support one another, where our lives are all valued and we get to live in our full existence. So I think I'm being intentional to make sure I'm not saying not the negative part. I'm really trying to make sure that, you know, while I'm setting the intention, using my language in the most powerful way that I can, that when we're talking about the intersections of all parts of our identities, I am going to say one thing that is an absence of, because I think it's important, marginalization. When everybody is living fully and everybody has access and everybody is accepted, you know. So thank you for sharing that word, right? That there's a full acceptance for everybody and there's a full acceptance for us, for ourselves. Fluidity, that we can show up and we can just be whatever it is that we want to be in that moment, never mind the day or the week, right? And there's again that acceptance that wherever it is that we show up as, it's all fucking good. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on your space, but all parts of us, you know, from beginning to end, you know, that our lives are valuable, our lives are precious, sacred, and dripping. You know, I'm a mango eater, so when you when you gave that visual for me, that is it. That is, I was late getting here because I had to get the mango out of my teeth. I was just eating one, so it's always mango. Whenever I think of pleasure and juicy moments, there's always a mango. So my face is in it because I don't know about the knife and forks and shit. You know, you must get your face in it, and that's it. My face is in life. So yeah, all that juiciness.
I thought I was the only one that did that. Oh,
No,
I was like, I'm a mess.
Name it. If you're not Caribbean, if you're not Jamaican, if you're not whatever it is, I don't know about knife and forks. I think it's rude. It's disrespectful to a mango to show up with a knife and fork. Disrespectful. I'm just gonna say. Yeah.
I feel seen.
I love y'all. You're getting a lot of love in the chat with the mango convo, just saying.
Caribe.
My heart is just really full hearing all of you talk and like all of what you're saying. Like, I'm like, yes, wow. And like some of what you're saying is like beyond my wildest dreams. Like, I'm like, wow, yes, like that. Like, I feel like I can feel like my heart like cracking open. Like, wow, like that's possible for me, for us, like our community. Like, wow.
Yeah, there's this quote that says, everything was impossible until someone did it, you know. I love that quote. I don't know who said it. If anyone knows, feel free to throw it in there, but
So I only had 2 questions planned for the night. So my second question. It's good because we're like halfway through. So a lot of folks already started to dip in there because nothing is binary and it's not like one or the other. And so it's not like you can answer one without the other necessarily. Like they're always like this, they're not like this. But if I was to ask the other side of the question, what type of support or like, I mean, we started talking about the Don't Stay Gay bill in Florida. We started talking about the anti-trans legislation going on in the US. I'm from the US, I'm based in the US. I'm not sure what's going on outside the country in terms of trans rights, but like where, where are your priorities right now as like trans folks and members of the community? Like what do you want to shed light on? Where is your heart right now? Like, where is it going? What are you being called to speak into the space, into the room, the Zoom room right now? And I've been like harping on this idea recently about like trans folks deserve vacations. And it feels really ludicrous. And it's also very relevant. I was watching an IG live yesterday with Chase Strangio and a WNBA player who I don't know their name, but they use she, they, he pronouns. And they just started a fund to get BIPOC trans folks on vacation. And I'm going to share it in the follow-up email. And I was like, wait, it's not that wild of an idea. Like, this is relevant. So that's part of my dreams, but also, I guess something else I'm passionate about is just like financial well-being of our community. Like folks were talking about access and resources, and it can show up a lot of different ways. And I used to think money was the root of all evil, and I'm working on like shifting this understanding. Like money can actually like, we can like believe in abundance, and like we can actually believe we're worthy of it and like deserve it and like call it in. And like, just imagine if, Owl, you want to talk because you're laughing.
Oh no, my dog's eating his hedgehog. And it makes this funny. Hold on, come here, buddy. Everyone has to see now because you wanna. It makes this funny, like I don't know. It makes this funny sound. It's so cute. But I was also smiling because I am actively doing that work of like. Well, I've been doing the work of seeing money as a tool for like almost, I don't know, ever since I started my business, maybe like 2000, maybe like 10 years maybe now or so. I've just been working through like different phases of seeing money as a tool. And, you know, and there's been so many struggles because I have my own like mental health issues that come into play every day. And I'm starting to see them a bit more. And now that I live alone, I'm like, okay, like it's hard for me to like get simple tasks done. And like, why is that? Why is it hard for me to create my own routine? Why is it hard for me to commit to things? And a lot of it is because I haven't had the resources to fully invest in like my mental health and in like those things. So now that I found like a few different like sites. One's called Alma, ALMA. I'm using that right now, and it's a site where you can find like a therapist, and if you have insurance, which is a privilege, which I was so thankful to have, which is also a big reason why I'm in California too, because they have a lot of great just healthcare programs and things here. Even though it's expensive, you know, it's still like way less expensive to have, you know, insurance or things like that. And it's just like having access to those things, I can see myself being more able to like create like the visions that I create, be able to continue with my podcast or like all the things that like I feel like I have to stop because they don't bring in money, but a lot of it's also because I don't have the capacity a lot of the times to like do that fundraising or like connect with people. Sometimes like before I connect with someone, I'm feeling really, really low. And so to be able to bounce back, I've been finding different ways. And for me, my way to bounce back is with herbs and with like taking care of myself and with rest and with like, yes, like vacation or like any time that you can take time to like not worry about things. So I found that there's ways to take vacations for me, even just by being at home. You know, I can just take a different walk. Leave your phone at home and turn the fucking thing off. It's a vacation. You'll notice. You'll feel it. Like turn that fucking phone off. It's a vacation. And so like, because I would try to like leave. I would go to Airbnbs. I would like do all the things for a week because I get overwhelmed. I have all these different things to do, and I realized for me like a lot of it is finding that peace within myself and in the day and like seeing what things I can do to make sure that like my nervous system is okay, and being okay with my nervous system not being okay, and being able to notice that and say it like, okay, I'm having an anxious breakdown right now. What do I need to do? And I never would get there before. Before it would just be like the whole day, the whole world, fuck everything, chip on my shoulder, fuck you, fuck this, fuck everything. And now it's like, okay, wait, something's happening and I realize it. What can I do to create that shift? And so I think that if there's a way for more people to get to that place and to accept also where we are, like, I know that I'm never gonna be like the most mentally well person, and that's okay, you know, that's okay. I know that I'm gonna be, as long as I continue to strive to be my best each day, I know that I'll be better at when the things that come up that trigger me, I'll be able to acknowledge it and I'll be able to shift. And so I hope that I answered the question in some way. But really, I think I kind of lost track of the question again. But yeah, that's what needed to come out of my mouth right now.
You helped me finish my thought, so I appreciate it.
That was totally eloquent and right on. Yeah. I just want to tell a little story. Can I? It's almost actually more on the tip of the last question, but it's like a story of hope. And I almost want to name you who are in the audience, because you made this possible. But I also know you were like, I want to be anonymous. But anyway, there's a very special person here. So I just taught this queer trans yoga retreat in Costa Rica with, it was like a beautiful team. I was the main organizer, but then Farah, who's a South Asian Muslim femme, Tiger, amazing facilitator, Black trans masked person, dear friend, and then Gracielix, like mixed race, indigenous, Chicanx, NB. So I felt like we had a lot of there was a lot of care put into how can we actually weave a space where people can really come. And then the group that came was I was worried about it leading up to how can we actually create a space where people can land? Because with queer stories and trans stories and QT BIPOC folks, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot in the space. And it was wow, how can we make a space where people can really arrive? I'm a little bit actually ahead of the game. I really didn't think it was going to happen. I really felt like this was too big of a dream. I bit off too big of a bite, and now I'm just going to lose a bunch of money. It's not going to fly. But I'm looking at you. If you want to raise your hand, I will name you. But I'm really sending you this love because someone amazing trans angel made a mega big donation that brought me to tears and to my knees. And it was really because of you that I was okay, this retreat is happening. Without you, I don't know if it would have, but with you, it was okay, this is happening. And then through that, it was okay, let's just create all the scholarships and whatever you can come up with, come. And I was able to be so generous and have people come, and this amazing group came together. And I just want to say because when we're in it, when we're in the day-to-day and the grind and the anxiety and all, it just feels so heavy and so multi-layered. Healing feels sometimes so far away. But what I found was in that space where it was there was food, there was beautiful beds, we could go swim in the ocean. There was away from the phones, away from the world. I had no idea how potent it would be to be in an affirming space for a whole week. We do a queer trans class and it's oh, for an hour, wow, that's so cool. Or we go to a dance party or some kind of thing, or an activist, something, and it's oh, but then to have this extended space, it was unspeakably profound. Within 48 hours, and we had the care, we really had the care built in. So yeah, when something came up, when there was some conflict or fear or trigger, it was cool, we're ready for this. We built this for this. And then those people could be held and they could work through and be affirmed and have the acceptance and feel the love and be okay. And it was so amazing. I feel within 48 hours, people really disrobed, and it was amazing. Like the amount of joy, what I realized is like, oh, it's not that out of reach. Like if there's care, if there's like trauma-informed care, amazing, yeah, like healing practices, good healthy food, sleep, like a fair amount of like safe enough safety, then holy wow, like what is possible? Like wow, and then this is what's possible. Like to see everyone like let their cute selves come out. And then it was emergent what was needed. Like, oh, people want to have a cuddle party, so let's do like a consent workshop. And there was like by the end we were like swimming naked in the ocean, like things that I never would have imagined would be possible were actually possible. And it didn't take that much. It was like the skills, the container, the resources of money to like help people get there and help it happen. But to kind of answer your second question, like that's what I'm here for. And it doesn't have to be like in a faraway place, but to have these deep dive, deep affirming, nourishing, like critical spaces just feels like, oh yeah, that's why I'm in existence. Like I'm here for that. And I want that so much. I do feel like everyone that came back, like our WhatsApp thread is just on fire since, like to have that support and community, and like everyone came back and they're so nourished, and then they're going to their local communities, and like, I just see, and it feels so possible. It doesn't feel so pie in the sky. So yeah, thank you, Anonymous Angel. Just, I love you. Sending you a lot of love and gratitude. So sweet to see your face. And next time you have to come, that's the thing. But yeah, amazing what is possible. And so yeah, I want to find like the money. I want to believe there's so much money out there to support this stuff. Like yes, people need like food and needle exchange and housing and like rest and play and fun and affirming, sexy, sweet, deeply spiritual, fun space. Like we need all of it, and we shouldn't have to choose. So that's kind of where I'm at. Because I used to be like, oh, we can't have this pleasureful stuff until the housing. And like, we're always going to need to be working on that. Like the basic needs stuff. Like we're always going to be doing all that work, but we already are. Like who's at the front lines of all that stuff? It's like all of our people, right? So like in the meantime, like we shouldn't postpone this other stuff is what also I'm thinking, like both and, you know, like needle exchange and like deep shavasana or whatever, I don't know. And the juicy mangoes. Yeah, therapy, like all the things. Anyway, that's a big share, but I want to bring some of that into the space because it was like, I didn't know that was possible. And now I'm like, oh, that's possible. And I want you to know it's possible too. Yeah. Thank you. Complete.
Actually, I'll share something. I think what I'm like the common thread that I'm seeing here, like a lot, or not a lot, but what I've seen so far based on the second question is like mental health is like super, 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 super important. And so with that, like, you know, if I can share like a little bit of my story too with that, I think it, without my mental health, without having had, again, the privilege to be able to go and see a therapist and when I needed to, I don't think like I would have had the space to like be who I am today or be authentic, or the space to, and it's not that I don't think, I know I wouldn't have had the space to be who I am, to be authentic, to be able to help other people in the way that I'm doing now. So I just, like, for everybody's watching, like I really want to drive this, like you cannot do anything else without your mental health. There's no way. That is number one priority. And it is a privilege to be able to have insurance and to be able to go see a therapist and all of that. But if you can, if it doesn't mean another meal or therapy, you know, if that's not the case, then maybe you shouldn't spend $70 on sneakers. Maybe spend it on some mental health therapy that you need. Sneakers are nice. That does, you know, contribute to the mental health sometimes. It gives you that little bit of like that little oomph in the moment, you know, when you wear them, it's really cute, gives you a little bit of that moment, but that's not mental health. Mental health is deeper than that. You need to be able to deal with the traumas of your past, to be able to really sit with them and be able to be able to do that, to be able to get that done, and to be able to do other things that you really want to do, like take vacations and actually enjoy them. Because you know, you could leave your phone at home and take a walk, and that could feel like a vacation. But if you're not in your mental health, leaving the phone at home is not gonna, you know what I mean? Like none of that's gonna work without your mental health. So another resource I'd like to add is I use BetterHelp, and they actually have a division called Pride Counseling that I used very successfully once, and it changed my life. My therapist that I met through there changed my life forever. He was actually the reason that I even realized I'm non-binary. And you know, I like attribute all of my success to that. And without that, I wouldn't have the money, I wouldn't have the vacations, I wouldn't have my happiness, I wouldn't have any of this. Like this person you see here would not exist. I would cease to exist, is what would happen. And there's so many people out there who are ceasing to exist because they don't have this. They haven't taken the step. So I think it's really, really, really important that if you can, again, if it's not your option between like food and or therapy, like please take that investment in yourself. Speaking of money, like money works in that way too for you. Like money works for you to help you, not just everybody else, but works to help you. Take your money, spend it on you. Number one priority is you. I just really want to drive that in. So please, I beg people, like, I really like, I feel like I'm like constantly talking about this, but I beg people to please like try to seek mental health help if you can. And also keep in mind, your best friend is not your mental health help. They're not. A mental health professional is your mental health help. So anyway, I just want to mention that.
I guess I just also wanted to mention too that for people who don't have access to the funds or to the things, that if you have someone to reach out to right now and they're open to being that person for you, or even have that conversation of boundaries, like, hey, I'm just gonna dump on you right now and I need that support. Have that conversation beforehand. I think that's super important, instead of just always dumping on them, because then you create what Alexander was saying, like you're gonna create a best friend that's just kind of like, yeah, they're going through it again. Yeah, I put my phone down. Yeah, they're going through it. So, you know, like find that balance. And I think, yeah, I do think that I'm really happy to know that like you had that support, and that helped you to, you know, get where you need to be right now, and to shine that light. Like I love your content, I love what you're doing. And there is a lot of times where I look at that and I'm like, I can't do that right now. Like I have to focus on myself, or I have to focus on whatever I'm doing. And I compare myself a lot when I see other content creators that are more successful in what they're doing. And then I have to take a moment and just have gratitude that, like, you know, there's people that have had access to those resources and that I can figure my way to them too. So yeah, thanks for shining your light and doing what you do, because it inspires other people to get that work done, you know. And for a lot of people like me, who, you know, never have even known of like the access to like that thing, or who don't trust people, you know, I have a lot of trust issues. Like my parents were both crack addicts, you know, like there's so much that went on in my life. And so there's a lot of trust issues. And I think that once we are open, again, that topic of being open, be open to new things, be open to challenging yourself. And for people, if you're going through a lot of anxiety every day, like I do, you know, challenge that anxiety, like maybe lean into it, maybe feel it, you know, and see what can happen through that. A lot of times I breathe into it, it's like feel it in my belly. So I'll notice my breath like hurts, kind of hurts to breathe. So if you breathe from your belly and then your chest, you'll notice like over time, like it starts to kind of relax a bit. And if you need to smoke some weed or something because it's getting too heavy, do that, you know, do what you got to do. Know yourself and create something with yourself, because sometimes your therapist might not be there. And so it's kind of like also create those coping mechanisms and find that therapist when you can. And I really hope that every person can find a therapist. Even therapists have therapists, you know, so praying for that for everyone. That's a big thing for Trans Joy, is that all trans people have access to therapy. And yeah, I'm complete. I like that, Sunaina.
But I'm like, that's helpful. Sunaina or King Ya, did you want to add something? I made both of you.
I'd love to share. I love that everybody's, catching up with the I am complete. Like, I love that. So many things are resonating with me. Like, shout out to my therapist real quick too, because, mental health help is so important. And I also just recently started couples therapy for the first time as well, which was very, very different and also super reflective. And at times is like, oh shit, just like slap in the face really quick, right? Of like, you need to check yourself. You need people who are accountable for you, and who can keep you accountable, who aren't just going to validate everything that you feel. I think a lot of times, especially for me, when I'm upset over something or I'm activated, I want to go to that person that's going to tell me like, oh, it's okay. You're totally right. All of your feelings are valid, blah, blah, blah. And in reality, that's not always the case, right? Like, you need people who are going to check you and who are going to say, well, like, I know that you're hurting X, Y, and Z. And at the same time, how can you do better? Like, here are the ways that I think that you can grow. Here are the ways that I think you can do better. And so when talking about support, I really, really want to uplift mutual aid, just generally, just sharing mutual aid. Anytime you see it on somebody's story on Instagram, just reposting it, screenshotting it, just sharing it in general, because a lot of times that is the way that folks are going to get money. I did a puja, which is a holy ceremony a few weeks ago for Ganesh Space, and we donated some of the fund to All India Trans Lives, Save India Trans Lives. And in India, you can still it's still punishable by death. And so for me, when thinking about my people and who I want to support in this fight, it is important to note that at least here in America, there are some safe places that you can go to, or some safe states, right? Where you're protected by law, and that is not the case there. People can stone you, the police even will take you and murder you and kill you, right? So it's very heavy, and it's not the same amount of heaviness in each country. It's very, very different depending on where you are. So understanding that positionality is really important, and just, paying people in general, and being non-attached to that money if you have the money as a resource, right? I think that that's very, very important. And money is also just such a interesting topic because it is an energy. I think of it as an energy, and as we're exchanging money back and forth, and as we're sending it to other people and receiving it back, and we're in this community of money flowing in and out. And it's also something that is not binary, right? It's in this spectrum, it's in this fluidity of sometimes you may have more money, sometimes you may have less, and it's constantly going to change. And again, I'm saying that from a position of extreme privilege of, I got a corporate job after I graduated college, which I paid for myself to pay off all of my student loans, which I had about, close to $40,000 of student loans that I paid off in 3 years. But it's things like that for me that are important to talk about. How can we educate our community around finances? How can we educate our community around credit? What is building credit? Why is it important to have a credit card? Why is it important to have a credit score, for example, right? Sometimes we can talk about finances and money in a way that's really high level, really umbrella, without kind of going into the details of why is mutual aid, financial support, and understanding the nuances of this system, because money is a system, right? And as we're dismantling white supremacy culture, we have to understand that we're also dismantling capitalism. And capitalism is all tied into this system. So we can't really separate the two, right? If you're anti-white supremacy, you kind of have to be anti-capitalism. There's no way around it, in my humble opinion. So I really think that reposting, uplifting the folks in your community, sharing when possible, educating when possible, when you have the space and capacity. And I think, Ale, you had put in the chat brahmacharya earlier. And so I also want to touch on that. Brahmacharya is a yogic value, and it really ties, like it means energy conservation, right? And so knowing when folks are receiving and when they're ready to receive, and sharing when folks are ready to receive. Because if you're not in a place of receiving and being able to open up and being in that vulnerable place, then no matter who tells you or gives you money or advice or mental health help, emotional help, spiritual help, anything like that, you can't take it in because you're still in that closed off space. And I also wanted to share one other experience that I had very recently. I was in Vrindavan, India, and I had an intuition to go there. One of my rishis and teachers had told me, go to this ashram, stay there, do some spiritual work, do some seva, give back to the community. And I just decided to go there, and I ended up getting initiated into a yogic lineage. A Hari Bhakta Sampradaya is the lineage. And in this process, like, I arrived in this temple in India, and the very first person I saw doing the puja, doing the ceremony, was a queer priest who was Indian, who was in the temple. And this is the first time ever in my entire life that I have seen a queer or a trans person in a temple, period. Like, that's just not something that I've seen. And as I had this experience, and as I understood that there are specific places where trans and non-binary and queer folks are accepted and allowed, especially in religious settings, I realized that that's another form of support, because spiritual support is a form of support. And for a lot of trans and non-binary folks, me included, I've been burned by my religion many times, and I felt unsafe in religious places. And I felt that I need something to connect, but I don't know where, because everything was so gatekept, or, I was told I was going to accrue negative karma for being and existing in the way that I do. And so to feel so welcome and so opened in my own home country, and to see that happen was really just, it blew my mind. It shocked me. And it also empowered me, it empowered me to want to share all of these truths with other people who are like me, other people who had been burned just like I had, so that I could provide spiritual support for folks who are trans and non-binary, because that's not something that was accessible at the time. So I just wanted to share all of that. Thank you for listening and witnessing. I am complete.
Yeah. I mean, you can breathe, but you've been so graciously patient.
Yeah, sitting with all the shares, especially the last one, bringing in spirituality, which is everything, everything. I resonate with just about everything that's been shared. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that mental health keeps coming up as a recurring theme. Because I feel like, we see it as an area that trans people, I think everybody, but especially trans people, seem to struggle with. So if it's not because of finances, being able to access, then it might be around, I know for myself, it's been around being able to access or find a therapist who is queer and trans I'm not saying friendly because everybody likes to say think that they're friendly, but they're competent, right? And also going even further, that I need one who is actually desirably Black, you know, like I am. So that is a struggle. So it's a struggle to find queer and trans therapists that are also, you know, to share many of your identities. And that's important. And I'm thinking, so my mind is in a place of thinking heavily around mental health these days. And I'm thinking about what communities can do to support people with mental health, because I know that, unfortunately, I think I read recently that like half of the people who have been murdered by the police had some kind of mental illness, right? That's scary, right? So what can the community do to help people to, when they're having a crisis, right? Because not everybody has access to therapy. Not everybody knows what to do so that they're not calling the police or calling the ambulance or calling all these other places where they're more likely to result in our death, right? What can the community be doing? Like, so I'm sitting with that. I was in a space last night, I think it was with Fire Week. And one of the things that they came up was around, you know, thinking about what care management can look like. And there was also a dreaming of communities where there were centers where somebody is having a crisis or someone is just not doing well. You know, it's like a 24-hour place that you could bring somebody, or you can go yourself and do something. I don't know, maybe there's therapists, maybe sometimes you just need an outlet to maybe, you know, do something physically. Maybe it might be, you know, access to maybe a massage, maybe it's talking, maybe it's birds, maybe it's, you know, furry things, the pets, where you can like bring your children and you know that your children are going to be somewhere taken care of, you know, 24 hours that you can go in and get some kind of help. So I'm just in the space of imagining things, right? I don't know these things existing. And I just think that our communities need so many things. It's very hard for me to pinpoint. And I'm glad that you all have shared, you know, what you're thinking about. And right now mine is mostly around mental health. It's around other things around reproductive health for sure. Making sure, and for me, whenever I'm thinking about reproductive health, it has more to do, more than just birthing and abortion or fertility. I'm thinking about where do people who bleed, like how do you always have access to the things that you need for your menstrual health, your menstrual care, right? People who are unhoused, people who are under-resourced in all the other ways. How do people have access to care for endometriosis? Why are people living with all this ridiculous amount of pelvic pain, right? That you have access, maybe it's not even insurance or whatever it is, but also having whatever kind of care provider, not even knowing how to work with trans people, that we don't feel safe going. So at so many points of our community, we're lacking, right? I don't feel there's any shortage of you know, places that we can name. We're just lacking. I'm just like, anybody, like choose one, make that your area and go for it, you know? And also knowing that it'd be nice if our community was doing a lot of the work that is not our, like for trans people, that we're not the ones having to do all the work. People have more of the privilege, step forward and start doing the things, because it's laborious for us, in addition to just living in our mere existence, that we're also doing that thing that I told you I don't want to have anything to do with, which is work. I don't want to fight, I don't want to work, I don't want none of it, you know? So, so there's that. I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Thank you. I know that we are near the end of our session, and I want to give Minky a chance to answer this question. So we might run over a little, y'all. If you have to go, I love you. And if you can stay, I love you.
Yeah, I'll make it as quick as possible. So in terms of like what I am prioritizing right now for our community, I mean, we talked about money, and I like to think of money as a tool. For those of you who don't know, I'm also a sex worker, and I use a lot of that funding in order to help fund the gym, and as a way to like continue to like funnel that money to individuals, you know. And I feel like that's kind of like the where my priority lies, is like the kind of the Robin Hood aspect of like, take the money from the privileged and then let's share those resources and continue to like provide access for folks who don't have that. And the way that, you know, we continue to do that is to pool the resources that we can from places of privilege, especially for folks who are in the community who have the privilege to give the money. Let's go. Let's continue to like keep funneling that towards folks who need it. As much as, you know, we want to dismantle capitalism, we unfortunately have to somehow work within that system in order to provide what we need. And I think like that is where my main like goals are, is to continue to, yeah, take that money and provide it into the spaces that allow for access, and then using the space that we have to then provide for more, like hosting events that are free for BIPOC folks in our community, and then asking white folks to, you know, give a little donation money, and continuing that like process and like healing and resource sharing. So that I think is so beautiful, and work that we're all doing really, really like, exactly, reparations, right? And like continue to pass that on. I was really touched by Sunaina's story about India. You know, for myself, like I think about Korea as well. I'm an immigrant, and in Korea, it's technically illegal to be queer and trans, but a lot of times in Korea, like in terms of mental health as well, like they just don't talk about queerness or transness. It's just not in existence. Not only that, on top of that, we've got mental health things that we just don't talk about it. But when we go back to like lineage and like spirituality, Korean shamanism is primarily run by women, but a lot of that has the fluidity in gender, and gender binaries are not real in that sense, and like that connection to spirits that are not just male or female, but all encompassing and connected to like the not privileged, like the lower class, right? Like connecting to like the folk in the country. And I don't know, I just like really love that connection to our like lineage. And I think that that exists in so many various cultures. And I want to like prioritize building that connection with our roots. Yeah. Because we've been disconnected from it for so long. So yeah, I think like what we all do as like movement practitioners and like sharers of, you know, opening ourselves and our bodies and our spirits, that is just so key. So thank you. I am also complete.
Thank you, Minky. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all of you. I like, wow, like I'm like, this could keep going. This could be something bigger. Like y'all are like, I mean, there's so much here. There's so much here that like I would love to keep diving into. And I think it's part of capitalism. I'm not sure. It's part of a lot of systems, this thing called time. And theoretically, our time is over. And that feels wild. I don't think I correctly thanked them yet, but I wanted to thank Tan, our amazing tech host, who's been dropping so many resources in the chat the whole time. Do y'all want to like take a moment for a sacred pause together? just to sit for a moment. If you're into breathing, if you're into the yoga, you can take some deep breaths. We all as humans theoretically have to breathe, so breathe like you like. Wow, y'all, I'm blown away by everything that you all shared and brought to this space tonight. Everyone on the panel and in the audience, Avery, Alexander Tries, Al Rare, Minky, Sunaina, Kenya, our interpreters, Tan. I value you. I thank you. I'm grateful for you. I would offer words more than that, but we are out of time.
We
But
want to
I-
thank you. Thank you for organizing this. You created all this. You like pulled it all together. Thank you, Ale.
Thank you, Ale. You're amazing.
Real. Great job.
We're going to send out a follow-up email so you can see all of the wonderful events that everyone has going on. And please take care of yourselves tonight, especially if you're trans in the trans family community. Drink some water, take a bath, go outside, get some sun, eat some food, do what you like. I'm going to have sex. That's on the recording. Great. Mom's not getting it. She can get it if she wants. And nourish yourselves tonight, babies. You deserve it. You're worth it. Remember that song? I love you.
Sex is self-care.
Oh, thanks everyone who showed up. Yeah, so much love to you all.